worship this evening, which is themed Amazing Grace. And we will be singing a version of Amazing Grace, but maybe not the one you know. So it is so good to have you worship with us this evening in person and online. For those who are unsure, when you're online, whether you're on your own, there is over 100 of you at every worship service. So know that you are all worshiping together in a community with us in the building. So this evening, I don't have many announcements. One is that we have a raffle going at the moment for the month of June. It's a 50-50 and it's $10 a ticket. The money is going towards erecting a dog pen play park thingy, an area where the dogs can run free at the side of the building. So if you would like a ticket, you just let me know. If you want one and you're worshiping from home, you just email me on info@mccgainesville.org. And we have worship followed by a board meeting on Sunday. So you're welcome to join us then in person or online. That's what I've got for this evening. What have you got, Jonathan?
Oh, praise and worship. Hallelujah.
Yeah, I'm ready.
If you're able and would like, would you stand with us today? Even if you're sitting at home, you can stand with us. You can dance around the house like you're vacuuming or sweeping or whatever you normally do when you clean. But you can worship with us at home. Will love you like radiant diamonds, bursting desires we cannot contain. Will love you surely come find us like radiant fire, singing your name. radiant diamonds bursting inside us, we cannot contain. Your love will surely combine us like blazing wildfires, singing your name.
Lord, we ask for that hallelujahs to be multiplied, for our praises to be multiplied. For all that we do for you, God. We lift our hearts up in praise and worship and ask for your Spirit's blessing on it. And as we come to this service, we come just as we are. No frills, just as we are. Just as you have created us to be. With all our faults, with all the things that we say and do wrong, that makes up us. And it's that we bring to this worship today. May your Spirit fall on us. May your Spirit fill this place. May your Spirit lift our spirits. For some of us are feeling low and down. I don't know what to do next, but God, we know through this worship that you can touch hearts and minds and change our spirits. So we pray that your ruach, your breath, your spirit will come now. In your name I pray. Amen.
Fill this place with the praise of the God of all grace. Lift you high, glorify the ancient of lift your voice, lift your heads, and rejoice. God is here, fill this place with praise.
Are we serious about this? Are we really serious about asking God to fill this place? Because if we are, let's rise as we are able, whether we're in this place or at home, and really cry out to God to fill the place that we are in with the Spirit of God and the grace of God.
Fill this place with the praise of the God of all grace. Lift you high, glorify the ancient of days. Holy saints, lift your voice, lift your hands and rejoice. God ways and your own way today. Oh God, you are holy, you are mighty, and we worship you today. Hallelujah. Oh, with praise, we give you praise. With praise, I give you all praise. With praise. Hallelujah.
The first reading is Amazing Grace by John Newton. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. The Lord has promised good to me. His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. Yes, when this flesh and heart shall fail, and mortal life shall cease, I shall possess within the veil a life of joy and peace. This earth shall soon dissolve like snow, the sun forbear to shine, but God who called me here below will be forever mine. The second reading is from Acts chapter 14. At Iconium, Paul and Barnabas went as usual into the Jewish synagogue. There they spoke so effectively that a great number of Jews and Greeks believed. But the Jews who refused to believe stirred up the other Gentiles and poisoned their minds against the brothers. So Paul and Barnabas spent considerable time there, speaking boldly for the Lord, who confirmed the message of God's grace by enabling them to perform signs and wonders. The people of the city were divided. Some sided with the Jews, others with the apostles. There was a plot afoot among both Gentiles and Jews, together with their leaders, to mistreat them and stone them. But they found out about it and fled to the Lycaonian cities of Lystra and Derbe, and to the surrounding country, where they continued to preach the gospel. Here ends the reading.
This is a new chorus that we learned on Sunday, and it's so simple. And I invite you to sing it with us. It's, I worship you, Almighty God, because there's none like you. All I want to do is give you praise.
I worship you, Almighty God. There is none like you. I worship you, O Prince of Peace. That is what I
interesting when I'm on PowerPoint. You're never quite sure if you're going to get the words or not. So I said at the beginning, our theme today is Amazing Grace, and the first reading was the actual song Amazing Grace that we know. I was just trying to find it here. I wonder how many of you actually know the history of this song. Because if you don't, I'm about to tell you. But I want to be clear that in Christianity, God's grace and God's mercy are often confused. So I wanted to kind of get that out of the way. Because they're similar expressions of God's favour and love, and they are really clearly distinct. When we experience God's grace, we receive favour that what some would say we don't deserve. When we experience God's mercy, we're spared punishment that we do deserve. I'll say that again. When we experience God's grace, we receive favour that we don't deserve. And when we experience God's mercy, we are spared the punishment that we do deserve. And Hebrews 4:16 says, "Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace." That's a throne with the quality and the character and the inclination to treat people better than they deserve. And when I first heard this years and years ago, I went, but that means that we think that nobody deserves God's grace. So I had to read it a little bit differently. And when you think about the mercy and the grace, it kind of helps you. But really what it's trying to say is that it's so important that we treat everybody with the same grace that we receive and expect from God. So the song Amazing Grace that we heard was actually written, and remember this is Juneteenth weekend.
Yes.
So this song was written by an enslaver, a former enslaver. And this stirring song that we often sing in churches, and it's kind of associated with the African American community, John Newton wrote. And you know, there's a Broadway musical about this song as well. Of course there is. There's Broadway musicals about just about everything. And it tells Newton's life from his early days as a licentious, don't you love that word? Licentious libertine in the British Navy, to his religious conversion and taking up the abolitionists' cause. Newton was born in 1725 in London, a Brit, to a Puritan mother who died 2 weeks after his seventh birthday. And his father was like a stern sea captain. And he took him to sea when he was 11 years old. Can you imagine that? 11 years old being at sea. That's an incredible adventure. But after many voyages and a reckless youth of drinking, which always happens at sea, according to my uncles anyway, Newton was impressed into the British Navy. And after attempting to desert, he received 8 dozen lashes and was reduced to the rank of common seaman. So when you hear those words of those toils and tempests that he went through, this is some of the stuff that he went through. But then he converted to Christianity after a miracle at sea. Interestingly, it wasn't until 1788, 34 years after leaving all this, that he renounced his former slaving profession. And he actually published a pamphlet called Thoughts Upon the Slave Trade. And he actually describes in there the horrific conditions on the ships. And he apologized publicly years later for the part that he played in that. And he said, "It will always be a subject of humiliating reflection to me, that I was once an active instrument in a business at which my heart now shudders." All of that to say that he encountered grace. When he knew what God was, he encountered grace during that journey. And even though he encountered grace and he wanted to change things, it took him another 34 years to get it. Now, I get that because I didn't get grace for about 30 odd years either. I got that God gave it to me, I just wasn't about to give it away. And that grace and humility was a huge lesson for me. And I hope that none of us will take that long, because believe me, your life gets a whole lot better when you can be grace-filled. Not just with the God's grace, but filled enough. You know, we had a sermon series on full to the brim. Full enough to the brim that it's overflowing and you have grace with even the people that you don't like, but you love them enough to share that grace with them. You know, this weekend we have Juneteenth, the celebration of the abolition of slavery. And it takes all of us to change the world, each of us doing our part. We have a guest preacher on Sunday, Reverend Brendan Boone, and he talks about a lot of this history. And you know that when slavery was abolished, it didn't just happen like that. Oh no, certainly not down here. The word took quite a while to get down here. But even when it did get down here, I'm pretty sure that there were quite a lot of people that thought that grace should not be afforded to the slaves, even though the law said that they were equal. Can you imagine? You've been beating and misusing slaves for so long, and suddenly a law comes down and says, you can't do this anymore. Yeah, right. I can imagine how it was, because we see how it is now. We see with Buffalo, we see with the incredible racism in the world, that it takes all of us to do our part to share that amazing grace of God. Jesus didn't come in this world to change everything and that's it, it's done. You know, we stop Jesus' story sometimes at the cross. We say the cross is the end of the story. Oh yeah, okay, he rose again. But that's kind of the end of the story, is the cross. But I think that we lose so much of that story if we stop right there. Because we are invited to carry on that message. We're invited to carry on that message of grace and love and humility. Now he took all these oddball guys from all these different trades, brought them together and showed them grace. Shared with them grace. And then said to them, now go and share with the world. And it didn't just stop then either, because we're supposed to be doing it now. And we heard the reading from Acts where, you know, the brothers were sharing about God's grace, and still people kept telling them, no, and they wanted to kill them because of what they were doing. And still today in 2022, that if people give grace to the black community, what are they called? I think I've heard, what is it? White? I can't remember the term, but like libtards or all these other horrible terms, because we're doing what we were called in faith to do, and that is share grace with everybody that we encounter. God's life, power, and righteousness given to us by unmerited favor. It's through grace that God works effective change in our hearts and lives. Grace gives us a new life, which is not condemned by God. Newton found that grace was so much more than he could have imagined. He says, amazing grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Because I was once lost, but now I am found. Was blind, spiritually blind, but now I can see. And I've come through many dangers and toils and snares, and grace has brought me safe thus far. And grace will lead me home. My prayer is that we will accept the amazing grace that God has given us and extend that grace to every single person that we encounter, whether we agree with them politically or not, whether we like them or not. We are freely given grace. Why not give it away? It's amazing grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now